just have to let go of trying to explain the rules of Ghost Baseball, okay? Because the first rule of Ghost Baseball is that nobody knows what the rules to Ghost Baseball are, okay? Welcome back to Foreplay. We are in our sports arc. Now, we began with the all-time classics Hoosiers. We are now about to do Field of Dreams. The next film will be Rudy, and we will end with The Hustler from the early 1960s with Paul Newman. A wide variety of different kind of sports films, all set in America, though, interestingly enough. We didn't pick any sports films from anywhere else around the world. A little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
A little bit surprising.
Just appealing to Monty's chauvinism as usual, you know.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah.
Every American's chauvinism. All right, so
I'll say this. Generally speaking, Americans do sports movies pretty fucking well. They've got that genre. Sure. War movies and sports movies. They've got that. They've got those genres nailed down for some reason.
Field of Dreams, 1989, the American classic. Whatever you think about Field of Dreams, I think it would be hard to do our first sports film arc without including it, given the fame of this film. And I know you guys, I enjoy this movie quite a bit, but I know you guys struggled with Field of Dreams.
I'd forgotten. So the way I remembered Field of Dreams, and look, this isn't as bad as what happened with Batman Returns, and it's and certainly 500 Days of Summer, which we already knew going in was a horrible movie. But the way I remembered this film and watching it back now for this arc, very different. I remembered it pretty much as just like Kevin Costner. It was almost like the Close Encounters of a Third Kind. Yeah. He was kind of like and eventually felt compelled to build this baseball field so he could like reconnect with his father, essentially. But what actually happens in the movie is not that. It has one of the worst setups. The first 25 minutes of this movie are garbage.
Also, how fast is the fucking setup?
Yeah,
by the way, literally my first note says needed better setup. That's the first note of the entire notes for the movie. Because I know what you mean. I also know when I saw this film, again, it would have been around the time it came out, or maybe in the early 90s.
Yeah,
I remember thinking, like you, that it was actually really like, it was almost like an intense thing where a guy's driven to his limits, then he starts hearing voices, he connects with it. No, instead, it's like the movie for real. It's just immediately him just like, what was that? Say what? And then he doesn't, bizarrely, even though you don't have to do it, doesn't go, am I mentally ill? Is there something going? He just sort of goes, that's real. Whatever that voice is real. And then his wife just goes, yeah, well, good. You know what? For now, we don't have financial problems. So build the baseball field, guy who's only a farmer. Like, I actually am genuinely shocked, because here's the thing. I actually think if the setup was stronger, a lot of the rest of the dominoes would fall into place. It would actually work better as a film. But because the setup was so sort of like almost hollow to me, mate. Like, I was actually genuinely shocked that, like, am I missing something? Like, am I missing something they're trying to like suggest here? Is there an implication? But it was fairly straightforward, actually.
I mean, to be absolutely explicit in how quick.
And mate, as you say,
it's
even
like
the part of
second
like
scene.
Even the part later when he is experiencing and asking questions, is this heaven? He almost says it in like again like an everyday way. It's not like some oh my god, this is heaven. Yeah, the afterlife and this is human. No, they just go like,
it's Iowa.
I guess it's heaven then. Oh, cool.
No, it's Iowa.
Right.
As well,
Anyone else out there?
Hate, yeah.
Is my dad in there?
Yeah.
What?
Just
Is this heaven? No. It's Iowa.
Now, if you were in one of the sports films from this arc, you might find yourself getting a little bit sweaty out there on the field, on the diamond, in the court. And so you probably could use Mando's newest product. And that is, of course, their deodorant plus sweat-controlled solid stick. It's double protection. You get the odor control you love from Mando, plus powerful sweat control. So this is a new product for them. It joins their other products, such as their standard solid stick deodorant, their cream tube deodorants, their body washes, their bar soaps, and of course, those deodorant wipes, which if you've been working out, playing a game, and you want to go to dinner, Those deodorant wipes can be very helpful just to give you a nice cleansing before you head to your next activity. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice like a mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code FOURPLAY, FOURPLAY, at shopmando.com, SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Mando's got you covered with deodorant plus sweat control. Say goodbye to sweat stains and hello to long-lasting freshness.
Yeah, there's no... So the first 25 minutes, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be horrible. I'm going to come in and I'm going to absolutely wreck this movie. Because let's just be real. Right, so man wakes up, goes out into field, right, hears a voice. If you build it, he will come. Build it and he will come, right? Because obviously everyone says build it and they will come,
which is a misquote of this film and misses the but also if you say if you build
it's
it,
the play
they
against
will
Sam
come
of this film, isn't it? It's the play against Sam.
I just think it's funny because if you build it, they will come also just misses the entire point of the theme of him reconnecting with his father, which is the whole point of the film.
That's a very famous thing that people cite as a Mandela effect, that everyone thinks it was if you build it, he will come, but actually it's they, apparently, in the real movie. That's when people say it's like the timeline change or something, because I've heard a lot of people debate that online.
Yeah,
I thought it was if you build it, it will come too, but
it is if you build it, he will come. That's what the voice says at the beginning. That's what it says.
Yeah, explicitly. So anyway, so he goes out into the field. He hears voices. Then he immediately talks to his wife, and
she's way too quick on board with this as well, isn't it?
I know, mental. This movie may as well be called Field of Unbelievably Supportive Spouses, right? Is what
that woman is unbelievable, yeah.
If you build what, who will come?
You didn't say.
Ooh, I hate it when that happens.
Me too.
I mean, look,
just the best wife I've ever lived.
By the way, I will defend the setup to this movie because I actually really like the opening montage where he's describing his life. Because I think it has a lot of really good lines in it, and also it sets up the movie really well. And I think one of the key factors is to remember is that they are very explicitly hippies from Berkeley in the 60s. So I don't think that this is too outlandish.
Oh yeah, I mean, true. They do try, I guess, to go. Maybe it's flashbacks or what. They do put a little few lines.
But it's
there,
also like these are
acknowledge
people from a time period. Look, this film is about the changing of times in America, right?
Sure.
And it's about
hence why they pick baseball as the metaphor. And all
exactly,
that shit.
because you know the through line of baseball links the eras, but it is about aging, and it is about the changing of times and the changing of politics, and it's very, very, very explicitly about that. So I don't think it's so outrageous that you say, okay, these people from the 60s that were hippies, that were believing in alternate spirituality, would potentially be supportive of something of this. Just gonna put that out there. I think it's set up.
Yeah, that's fair. For me, right, it definitely needed a bit longer in the oven, the setup for this movie, because, like, as I said, he goes out into the field, he hears the voice, he goes to work, he goes, yeah, you all hearing voices when you're out there in the corn?
Who's hearing voices?
Ray is. Not in the fields. No, I'm not. Noises.
Like, by the way, the most mental, like already... people would just be like,
oh, by the way, later on in this, you're going to
mentally
need to defend to me, Monty, why they just arbitrarily flip-flop and decide people can hear the voices, people can't, just depending on whether it suits the story or not. Like, there's no mechanism or rhyme or reason to that, Monty.
You're going to hate this movie.
You better be full Johnny Carson fucking defense lawyer on this one, Monty. If the glove does not fit, you must acquit. You need all your slogans.
Look, man, they're never. Here's the thing about this film. Here's the thing about Field of Dreams. They're never going to explain the rules of the ghosts, okay?
Sure.
So you just have to let go of trying to explain the rules of Ghost Baseball, okay? Because the first rule of Ghost Baseball is that nobody knows what the rules to Ghost Baseball are, okay? So you have to get over the fact that who can hear the voices, why can't they hear the voices, what the hell is going on at the end with the line of cars, how obviously the implication would be if everybody saw the ghosts, that it would be a world-shattering event that would change all of spirituality for the rest of time. Okay, we just have to get over that.
Okay.
We can't focus on that. That's not the point of the movie.
All right. But this is also the fundamental problem with the movie. So hold on. Right, we'll just get the setup out the way. Let's end the setup talk, right? Because the setup is bad. So right, he goes to work, voices in his head. You're all hearing the voices as well. No, never had a voice, mate. Are you all right? Whatever. Oh, don't worry about it then. Yeah, no problem. Goes home with his wife. I'm hearing voices. What voices? The voice tells me if I build it, he will come. Right? Well, who's he? I think the voice is telling me if I build a baseball field on my failing farm, Shoeless Joe Jackson will come back from the dead to play baseball again.
Because, he's my dad's favourite player at that. So
and what she's supposed to say is,
I know.
Why the fuck would that be important to me? Like, why would that matter to me? But she
basically, even so, Richard. Even if that is all true.
Even if that was all true.
Why are we building the baseball field?
Because there's a reason to that. No, fuck you guys. You're actually just ignoring the things that are in this movie. I agree that the setup is kind of bad. Okay, I agree with you. In fact, I think the strength of this film is really like when James Earl Jones starts in this movie.
Oh yeah, I've got good things to say about James Earl Jones.
There's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff that happens, especially in the middle towards the end of this film. And by the way, if you want to talk about incredulity, the scenes are fucking hilarious where Kevin Costner is trying to convince James Earl Jones. We'll get there.
We got a learning disability here.
Mr. Man, if I could just have 1 minute, please.
But to your point, he literally tells her when they're sitting in bed together, he says, I need, because she is skeptical. And he's like, I feel like I need to do this because I don't want to become my father. That's the reason he does it.
I'm 36 years old. I have a wife, a child, and a mortgage, and I'm scared to death I'm turning into my father.
What's your father got to do with all of this?
I never forgave him for getting old.
Oh, I know what you mean, Monty. I will say it is almost like she's humoring him because he's having a midlife crisis or something like that, right? Because obviously that's why he's saying all the stuff about his father. He's in a similar position. He never experienced him as a man before he became one.
I disagree with the notion that she's on board with building this so the ghost of Shoeless Joe Jackson can come back. The reason that he eventually gives is that his father was never spontaneous, and therefore he doesn't want to become his father, which we'll get to for a lot of reasons, because there's actually no evidence that his father was a bad human being at any point in this movie, which I find very interesting. And I think this is where the writing is really good in this movie, but we'll get to that in terms of themes in a bit. But I do think there is a reason, and she is supporting his midlife crisis because he is having an internal struggle. And I don't think she's on board with
36-year-old.
I don't think she's on board with his fucking
ghost
but
doesn't
shit.
he say he was the age that his father was when he left? With something like that, right?
Which is very important.
He does say that.
Which is very important because one of the first lines of this film is, "I never forgave my father for getting old," which is a great line and is very, very. It's like the key to the entire film. So we will get there, but I don't agree with your take that
by the way,
she was just like, okay, build the field for ghosts.
I actually do think the main theme of this film also was maybe lost on me the first time I saw it. The theme of the film is actually basically about like the point at which men stop being boys and become like responsible fathers, and like what it means to like have a vocation versus a dream, etc. Like that's what the whole thing with the doctor's about, etc. Yeah, loads of that stuff. Yeah, of course.
Hugely about regrets.
Sure. I'll also say, right, like in the Richard Lewis version of this film, right, what would have just happened there is his wife would have immediately tried to have him sectioned, and the rest of the movie would have been him trying to fight to get out of a mental institution and do the field thing, right? But I will say this, right? So as the movie went on, I realized like I was going to have a very. I went into the movie, watched the first 20 minutes. I was like, oh, I'm going to be shitting on this. The boys are going to have to really work hard to make me like this film. But I'll definitely say this. What you have to realize is if you approach this literally, you're in for a bad time, I think.
I know. Pretty sure this is like a dream logic film to me.
Yeah, correct.
Like, I'll give you the example of the scene we'll talk about later, which is I actually think an example of one of the most ridiculous scenes, Murky, but actually this is why the setup need to be better in my opinion. One of the scenes that on its face is utterly absurd is he magically just goes back in time and meets that fucking guy when he's a doctor, then meets him later as a future old version of himself in our time. Because that fits the theme, that is quite a beautiful scene actually. The way that plays out and the way he chooses to leave to become the doctor again. But you have to. It is dream logic, though. You can't think of this as just a film.
Yes, it's called Field of Dreams.
No, but I mean, right. So I went and did a bit of research about the original text it was based on, because it's obviously adapted.
By the way, Monty, you know, as a random detail, I'll tell you what would actually make this whole movie amazing. If at the end it was actually just a dream, it would be the one movie where it would be appropriate that this was him working it through in his dream or something. That would actually be a good
It's not definitively not a dream.
Sure.
True.
Anyway, continue, Richard.
I was going to say, like, so I went and I did a bit of research. So, right, a guy called W.P. Kinsella, keep in mind the main character is called Ray Kinsella, like, fuck off, right, but whatever. He wrote a short story in 1980, and it was called, like, Shoeless Joe Jackson Comes to Iowa, or something. And then he was like, this short story's so good, I'm going to turn it into a novel and flesh it out. And so he created a novel called Shoeless Joe. And in it, the protagonist, Ray Kinsella, Kevin Costner, goes back in time and meets J.D. Salinger.
Yes, it's literally J.D. Salinger.
It is J.D. Salinger, Terrence Mann's.
I mean, you can tell it's a fill-in for that, but apparently I saw this. I told my rare times I did a little bit of research myself, Rich. I saw that it said J.D. Salinger basically told him, like, fuck off, you're not putting me in the movie. That's why they had to make it whoever this character is.
Yeah, we had to want to be in this.
Essentially,
bullshit. So anyway, but I read a few extracts and stuff, and basically for me, this is like one of you know how like Stephen King does like 3 types of story, and one of those types is he does these like set in the past, like Americana, apple pie, spooky ghosting. Yeah, it basically could have. This could be one of Stephen King's short
novella or something.
Like yeah, exactly. It kind of has that feel to it.
It has the Americana feel to it as well.
Yeah, magical realism, nothing makes sense, there is no logic, you can't approach it from that kind of angle. And so obviously, like, I was watching the first 20 minutes going, well, that wouldn't happen, she wouldn't do that, that's ridiculous, But obviously, as the movie goes on, and I think what turbocharges the movie into becoming charming, It is the arrival of James Earl Jones, which would have been J.D. Salinger, but he's called Terrence Mann in this movie. The Man, bit weird, but whatever. And T-Man. They could have done better with that. But anyway, basically, once he turns up and they start having their interactions, that's when the movie gets good.
Which, by the way, essentially becomes like the ill-fitting odd couple buddy cop movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Oh, come on. It's done so. I love the first scene where Kevin Costner, first off, I love it. There's so many things that I enjoy about the visuals to this movie. Like, I love the fact that when he goes on the road trip, it's in a VW bus because he is an old hippie, right? It's the vehicle of the 1960s.
Oh, yes, a classic one. Yes, exactly.
And it's a symbol because the first thing that James Earl Jones does is like spray him with cockroach poison and say, go back to the 60s, which is just very funny. And James Earl Jones just crushes the comedy in this moment, threatening him to beat him up with a crowbar before being reminded he's a pacifist. It's very,
that's great.
It's very humorous.
What are you doing?
I'm going to beat you with a crowbar until you go away.
Whoa, wait, you can't do that.
There are rules here? Oh, no, there are no rules here.
You're a pacifist. Shit.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is, but also, I mean, look, there's a lot going on just in and of that. I mean, it would have been so much. It would have been excellent if it was J.D. Salinger, because obviously you know about what J.D. Salinger went on to do in his life. He did become a recluse and all of this other stuff. But I mean, like what's great about the James Earl Jones character is it is a parallel to what he said happened to his father. He did get old. He did, become jaded. He did surrender his dream. He watched other people, the dream of the 60s, the dream that America was going to enter into this, wonderful period of love and
he became a software
He became
programmer.
old as well. Oh yeah, true.
But it also, like, I think this character is just so beautifully realized because his life is a reflection of the entire movie. He's the legend of the 60s literature. He's the guy who then changed into becoming a computer programmer for like children's software. And so he revitalized himself. He changed with the times. But also, he has massive regrets himself. He says lines like, they killed Martin, they killed Bobby, and they elected Tricky Dick twice. That means Martin Luther King Jr., obviously, Bobby Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, when they killed Robert Kennedy.
Just like Gene Hackman's character in Night Moves, I might add. So all roads lead back to Night Moves.
They never saw it coming from the side. It was Night Moves.
Correct.
Anyway, but my point is like he has these regrets because even as famous as he was,
we shouldn't have done that thing where we've gone on about the fucking name, because now it makes me like remember the movie and want to make my own director's cut where he's got like a special move where he like punches you by going forwards and to the right a bit, it's a like that. Like, yeah, exactly. He has to do some sort of everything he does is a night-based move for chess and some metaphor. That would make the film better and worse in some ways.
But like what I think is so interesting about Terrence Mann's character is he was the icon of the 60s in this fictional universe, and he couldn't stop the things that he didn't want to have happen, and society moved on and changed without him, and that has made him very jaded, right? And he doesn't want to be reminded of the past and his former idealism and his status as an intellectual leader. He himself has moved on with the times, and he has regrets about what has happened and what he was unable to influence. And I find that really interesting.
You're from the 60s.
Well, yeah, actually.
Ow! Hey! Back to the 60s.
Wait a
back.
second.
There's no place for you here in the future. Get back while you still can.
You've changed.
Which is why it's also interesting that the central part of this is the Chicago White Sox players that were involved in the 1919 World Series scandal that went on and became the Black Sox because they threw the game. Like, it doesn't really get into it. There's a terrible piece of exposition at the start of the movie, which is the exposition is predicated on his child not knowing what a single word means in the English language. What's a suspension? What's throwing? What's baseball?
I mean,
what's
they
humanity?
They had to explain this to people who knew nothing about baseball. So
correct.
I understand
and
why they did it.
Clearly,
it's actually clever. It's a clever way. It's a clever way to quickly set it up.
Clever. That's not clever. That definitely isn't clever. It's functional at best, but fine, right? And I understand it because not a lot of people know about this. For me, I include it.
I also forgot that detail, by the way. When I watched this as a kid, I didn't even know that was the point of the ghosts. Like,
exactly.
Like the whole thing. George Jackson actually tried to not throw he was the skadoodle in this analogy, Mitchie.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny you mention that because I do actually teach. It's the first week of my course at university is about this because it's to demonstrate that match fixing is something that has existed for as long as sports essentially and sports betting. And this though was in a lot of ways this was one of the most profound occurrences in American history. So I've done a lot of studying about baseball just in general, the rules, what years the rules changed, how it's all tied to American history. I watched that fucking Ken Burns documentary.
The Ken Burns documentary I was going to mention. I am not a baseball fan. I fucking love that documentary. Here's
the problem with it. what it does to Ty Cobb in that documentary, they got loads of details wrong about Ty Cobb, essentially slandered him as a racist. It turned out a lot of it was like really ropey sourcing and not accurate and stuff. A lot of people did criticize the Ty Cobb section of that documentary, but whatever. We're not going to get into how Richard Lewis tries to rehabilitate the image of Ty Cobb in a movie podcast.
Who, regardless of what of that aspect, was a famous asshole. Which is
massive
also,
asshole.
which is also,
and that for TV movie with Tommy Lee Jones, it fucking slaps.
So maybe he wasn't the exact kind of asshole that they portrayed, but he is mentioned. I mean, they even do a throwaway line in here where they basically are like, we didn't invite Ty Cobb because he's a jerk. It's just funny.
Ty Cobb wanted to play. None of us could stand a son of a bitch when we were alive, so we told him to stick it.
So anyway, the 1919 World Series scandal, the fact that there were players out there that would be willing to not win a game of baseball, which was perceived as being this pure aspect of American society that was uncorrupted by external forces. Like, no matter who you were in America, regardless of class and everything else, you could come play baseball, try to win. You represented your local community. In the very early days, you represented your profession. Some of the original baseball teams were like just firemen and things like this. So the baseball was this very, very perceived to be this very, very pure thing, America's pastime, etc. And then obviously when it was corrupted by this group of players, it was like horrendous. It was like this. It really shook the American consciousness to the core. And what happened to those players in the aftermath, I don't think they really understood the gravity of what they had done. And obviously the worst part about it is, like, a lot of them, I think most of them, didn't even get paid because obviously it all came out, the Rothstein connection, etc. So it's like, and obviously they all got permanently banned from professional baseball. They were like, I think they even called it, they were banished. Not banned. I think the term was they were banished. They couldn't hold any job at any level of baseball anywhere. And that's why the anecdote at the start with Kevin Costner saying how his dad saw Shoeless Joe Jackson playing in like some bush league under a fake name, because he just still wanted to play. That's the like element of poignancy there. That and then when Ray Liotta, who actually is terrible in this movie, I remembered him being good, more on that in a moment, when he says it was like having something amputated.
Getting thrown out of baseball was like having part of me amputated. I've heard that old men wake up and scratch itchy legs that have been dust for over 50 years. That was me.
A lot of these guys felt this way. They just didn't. These were dudes that were not getting paid what they should have been paid. Like, they got nickeled and dimed by the organization. Like, I think one of the players was like one run shy of like a bonus or something. One inning, not one inning, one outfield, appearance. Yeah. He was one of those shy at the end of a season of his bonus payment, and they didn't give it to him. And they said, well, numbers are numbers,
Oh, no, Richard, I will say, I actually immediately knew when I looked into that story why that is one that you give, because that is the analogy for early esports. We always say that line where we can't say the bloody names yet, but in a few decades, I'll probably fucking do it, right? Yeah. Where the joke goes, who is your favourite player in the beginning of CSGO? They match fixed, you just don't know it. They just didn't get caught. They did it in a way where wasn't traced, no one was looking into it. It was too late, and by the time iBad Power got banned, everyone went, quickly, let's erase our pasts. None of us ever did that, because essentially the metaphor people have to understand is, when the fan goes, but why would someone so good ever match fix? It's like, because it's actually, even though this is an excuse, it is because of the economic factors. At the time, you think, just like at the time of early CSGO, it's not a full-time job, or it's a job that doesn't pay well. You are giving up everything else in your life to do this dream, and unfortunately that will mean some people will then think, if I can get away with it, take a shortcut, get a bit of money out of this. And so sadly, I get it. Like, the point is, someone can't imagine now someone doing that in baseball because you have $100 million contract. But you can talk, if this era of baseball basically is early esports, mate.
Yeah, it is. It completely is. It was one of the reasons why when I started reading up on this, it was more just like, out of a curiosity, I'd started, but like, as I started reading the early history, I was like, holy shit, the parallels are insane. Like between, our day jobs, what we've done, what we've built.
Yeah.
And I've said it out loud multiple times on multiple podcasts. But I mean, this is the quintessential match fixing story almost in any sport. It's got every single element. Underpaid players, disgruntled with the organization that they were at. They get blackmailed. One of the players who was like on the bench, essentially, a guy called Freddie McMullen. He blackmailed them. Because he heard they were going to fix the game. It's got they all had vices as well. Well, a lot of them had vices in their real life, and this was costing them money. And then come the criminals, the corruptors, as they're called. If you look at the structure of a match fix, and they get involved, and of course it's all got ties to Arnold Rothstein, the legendary gambler. People were always like wondering, did he have an inside? Was he cheating? I mean, of course he was. And it's everything, but quintessentially, it's more than that, because while it's just interesting from a structural viewpoint, it's what it did to the American psyche that makes this particular case so profoundly important. And what's interesting about the film, to link it back to that, is this film seemingly doesn't judge them for what they did. There's like a little bit in it where Kevin Costner said, to hurt my old man's feelings, I said I can't be around a man who has a criminal for a hero. And that was when I left. I was 17, packed my bags, and I fucked off. And I threw that to my dad as a barb to hurt his feelings. And it's like, he even says, James Earl Jones' character says, but he wasn't a criminal. And it's like, wait, hold up. Hold up. It almost like does try.
I wanted to ask you that. In the film, they claim, like I say, like this Skadoodle angle of like, but actually, look out, the score that Joe Jackson had, that means he was trying to win even though they were throwing. Is that supposed to be true, that it's possible he was innocent in some way?
Yeah, the way the story goes, like quite famously, so Shoeless Joe did have like a good game, a good game in that series, and so a lot of people have essentially said, subsequently he was innocent, but it is absolutely not proven. And he
also did take the money. That's
yes,
critically important.
That's pretty.
And also, it said in the movie, Kevin Costner says he took the money, but it's clear from his performance that he wasn't trying to throw.
Right. So, but also, there's even more to it than that. Right. So, Shoeless Joe said he took the money. He was essentially tried as if he took the money, but then he turned around and said, "Actually, I didn't. I didn't take the money." And so he's created this ambiguity about whether he even took the money or not. And keep in mind, some of them didn't even get the option to take the money. They didn't even get that far down the thing. But also as well, he's always said, like, so basically when the investigation happened, he confessed and said he got like, I don't know, it was like $5,000 or something. And then that was in 1919 when the initial scandal broke. Then from like 1920 onwards, he suddenly starts saying he had no money, he was innocent. And then I think in 1921, when it went to trial, because it actually was a criminal proceeding, they turned around and the jury said that they were not guilty. They were not criminals. But so when James Earl Jones says that line so definitively in this movie, but he wasn't a criminal, I mean, yeah, technically. you know what I mean? Like, technically. But by the time it went to the trial, there'd been all this, like, litigating in public.
By the way, it would actually make the film stronger if there'd ever been, like, a scene where they sort of dialogue this a little bit, like, discuss, like, something like some motivation for them, or they regretted it. So I think that would actually make the movie better in some sense.
I just don't see it as necessary. So here's why. So we have Shoeless Joe, who, look, we could do without he definitely didn't do it. Like, I agree that there could have been some more ambiguity on that front. But regardless of whether it happens or didn't happen, because remember, the first time there's a ghost that shows up. It's Joe Jackson. The second time, it's Joe Jackson and the 7 or 8 other guys that he allegedly conspired with, right? They're all the Sox players who come back. And we know from the setup of this, we are led to believe that all of them are probably guilty of match fixing, right? Because they're not exonerated in any of the dialogue, okay?
Yeah.
But then you have to ask the question, okay, so why are they there? And I don't think it really matters so much, because the point that they are guilty is kind of the point, because they regret their actions, because everybody is doing things because of regrets that they had. That's the whole fucking point.
Yeah.
Right.
And also what happened with Joe Jackson specifically, Joe Jackson was educationally subnormal. Right, if you want, this is true. He was unbelievably poor. He lived most of his life prior to becoming a baseball guy. I think he was like his family were destitute essentially, and he didn't get his own representation. He didn't get his own legal counsel. I think he was represented by the team lawyers. So that's problematic. Then also, apparently, before it went to the initial, when he made his initial confession, apparently the prosecutor, they got him drunk. They were like, hey, have a few shots, Joe, and let's talk about this. He got fucking smashed and was going, yeah, I took $5,000 when he was like mangled on whiskey, and then obviously afterwards so there was a ton of problems specifically with him.
You would think that would get it thrown out the fucking test.
It's why it's why there's a lot. There's so much to this, and nobody knows the truth of what happened. But the bottom line is basically the reason Shoeless Joe is always held up as the one that, like, oh, did he do it? Didn't he do it? And even the name Shoeless Joe, he wasn't called Shoeless Joe because he was poor and he had no shoes. That's what people think, though. When you say Shoeless Joe, it conjures up this notion that he was so poor he couldn't even afford shoes to play baseball with. That isn't what was going on there. I've heard people say that to me. He just had that one thing where it tells you in the movie, you know, there was this one game, he had like new cleats or whatever, they were hurting his feet and giving him blisters, so he played barefoot, and somebody called him a shoeless bastard or something, and so it was just a nickname that stuck.
Why'd they call him Shoeless Joe?
Well, when he was still in the minors, he'd bought a new pair of spikes, and they hurt his feet. So about the 6th inning, he took them off and played the rest of the game in just his socks. The other players kidded him, called him Shoeless Joe, and the name stuck.
But he was the one that was probably the most exploited, probably the easiest to corrupt, definitely a ton of problems around his trial. He was also just like, exactly, a savant.
He was the most famous
prodigy.
player.
Yeah, exactly. People really, really liked him because of the whole, shoeless angle and stuff. He was like a character. So, look, he is always held up as like, if the Black Sox can be redeemed, it would be, you can buy into this notion that Shoeless Joe was innocent. But he probably wasn't. That's also the reality. He probably wasn't. He probably did take the money. He was probably in on it all, and probably because if you can ply someone with whiskey and get them to confess to a crime, you can certainly, if you're a friend of that person, go, "Come on, man, come on, Pally, we need the money." So this is the whole thing with Shoeless Joe. This is why he's like this iconic. Did he? Didn't he? When you say the skadoodle of, you don't realize how on the nose it actually is. Like it's kind of crazy. So yeah, but I personally, having read a lot about this, right? I don't believe he's innocent at all. Like, I mean, he was found innocent in court. Cool, Yeah,
but I think him not being innocent actually just strengthens the core of the film, because him having regrets is the thing that connects him to Kinsella and Kinsella's dad and Terrence Mann and what's his name, the doctor Graham, right?
Yeah,
these are Moonlight Graham or whatever. Yeah.
Here's the other
Graham.
aspect to it. I must get this in. When asked later as well, the other 7 or 8 players that were involved in the scandal, they always said when we were planning it at the meetings, Joe was never there.
Okay.
So they've said that.
It's mad that this is just the iBad Power story. It's like, oh, but he didn't really want to do it. And but he took the money because he said where everyone's going to... Oh, but that's the same thing.
So, I mean, look, you can choose... I mean, look, but also keep in mind, as I said, he was not... he wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, so why would you need him to be there? So...
Yeah.
But the bottom line is like a lot of people are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt when you consider all of the anecdotal evidence, but ultimately, definitively, there is nothing that proves his innocence. There is nothing that comprehensively proves his guilt. And all the others, by the way, definitely conspired, admitted they conspired, some of them got money, some of them didn't. Joe Jackson's the one that you can point at and go, oh, no, he's innocent. He was pure the whole time.
Yeah, but like I said, those other guys are, they're not major characters in this movie, but they are the next round of ghosts that show up. And the point is that they have the same regrets that Joe Jackson's character does. And I think it's difficult to believe that Joe Jackson, at the very least, didn't know that this was going on because clearly his team was playing worse, and it takes some level of conspiracy that is obvious to throw team games in particular. And so, you could say, okay, well, even if he's innocent, maybe his regret is not doing anything about this particular situation, which then led him to be exiled from baseball. Right?
It's basically the classic thing that happens if you're not the one doing the crimes, but you're in the mafia or something. Eventually that won't play in court. You can't just go I don't know where the money was coming from, but I was there. Eventually you're supposed to sort of sound the alarm or something, although you'll be considered complicit. Yeah, it's just the nature of this crime,
Yeah.
By the way, being as I'm not a big fan of this film, one thing I will say, I referenced it earlier, is I actually do think that the best part of the film is the Moonlight Graham section, even though it's utterly ridiculous again that he goes back in time, and then there's not even going back in time with him, and then someone from back in time comes to his time and then changes in. But first of all, Burt Lancaster fucking kills that whole scene. He steals the whole movie in that scenes, by the way. His face is just incredible. He doesn't even need to say much. He simultaneously pulls off the kindly older guy. Even the aspect money. It's actually a microcosm of what they're trying to do with the whole film. They just do it better in this scene. The fact that he just wants his one chance to play with the good players because he only got the one fucking inning or whatever the fuck. And then when he does
one game, no at bats.
The clever thing is, he's the one character that in the end didn't really have the same regret because he actually realised it was of benefit. In fact, in his case, it was more beneficial to become a doctor, wasn't it?
I mean, it would kill some men to get that close to their dream and not touch it. God, they'd consider it a tragedy.
Son, if I'd only gotten to be a doctor for 5 minutes, now that would have been a tragedy.
And so when he saves the guy's daughter, and you think, oh, no, fuck, you were just doing out to get your chance to be a baseball ghost. That's actually better. That's actually a very satisfying scene, I think, actually. I think they nail how he does that. And the way he's sort of he gets it and then leaves, even though, again, that's all dreams and fucking ghosts and all that jazz. But that scene, actually, I think is pretty good.
It's another fundamental problem with the movie, that whenever Kevin Costner is on screen with a real actor... They just beat the brakes off him, mate. It's just so...
Bro, he's actually not particularly good. I've never been a hater of Kevin Costner, but he's very average in this film.
I've got nothing.
It's very young as well. Shockingly young.
So I think there's not a lot of... I agree he's not great, but I think there's not a lot of room for him to act with this character because he's such a straight man to everything that's going on around him. Yeah. And the scenes in which he does have a chance to do something are the scenes where he's introducing himself to James Earl Jones. And I do think he is pretty good in those scenes, but generally I agree.
I think, to be fair as well, you're putting him up against some titans. He's interacting with James Earl Jones, and then it's right, we've got this little throwaway part for a time traveling doctor baseball guy. Burt Lancaster for that role, of course. But Duncan's fucking absolutely right. Burt Lancaster has isn't even 5 minutes of screen time, but he's.
It was also Burt Lancaster's last movie too, which is
interesting.
His very last film.
I mean, it also makes it kind of beautiful, the story being told. Then,
No, but that's another thing about this fucking movie. There's so much it got all these little confluence of circumstances to make it just a bit more poignant than it actually was. You know what I mean? Like, and obviously that little aspect, it's Burt Lancaster in his last role. You know, and things like this. It's like, fuck off. You got lucky with that one. That wasn't the plan. You didn't. You know what I mean? But like, this movie is right at its worst. Right. So terrible start. Monty disagrees with that. I stand by that. But
it's okay. I don't think it's great, but I think that the movie does pick up steam as it goes along.
It is syrupy.
By the way, Monty, I will just say, just very briefly before we go in, I'll just say this point. Think about what Richard said earlier about how you just be coming off as a mental patient. You then fuck off to wherever it is. Like, is it Boston or something he goes to? Where's it
Boston,
he goes to?
yeah.
He goes to Boston, right? Yeah. He goes to Boston. Remember, Monty, this is only funny and haha, that's fine, because he gets away with it. He literally threatens a notorious author that he has a gun and he's going to kidnap him. By the way...
Now, you really pissed me off.
Okay, just hold it. Right there. I was hoping I wasn't going to have to do it this way.
What the hell is that?
It's a gun. What do you think it is?
It's your finger.
No, it's not. It's a gun.
Think how many other ways this could go sideways, Monty.
Yeah,
you're in prison. Like, but that's just it. Hi, just playful. Hi, you're just pretending you have a gun. Like,
this is why you can't engage with it literally. You just
can't engage with it literally.
By the way, same with the ending. The ending, right? Again, I even thought, Richard, as usual, of a better fucking ending. I thought, because I remember thinking in the film, why is the Terrence Mann character here? Like, I get that, like, he gets helped by this movie and sort of his own catharsis, but how does he help the main plot? I thought, I know what they're going to do. Because he says he won't write again, he must then write like a sort of polemic piece about how baseball connects to our past and how in this field in Idaho, if you go there. But he doesn't do that. He just goes cheers, and then, like Richard says, instead of it being world news, Vatican speaks out on God. No, instead it's just like a monster car rally, Monty, and everyone's just queuing up like, can I get tickets? I'm in the queue. Like that.
But here's the
that
thing.
part doesn't work.
It's metaphorical. I'll get to that.
I get it, but that doesn't work. I agree with Richard, though. The problem is, Monty, this movie doesn't do enough of a wink of, like, this isn't supposed to be real. It is sort of playing it, like, very straight. That's the issue, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think where the movie would benefit a lot more is if it lent into the more mystical elements of it, you know. Like, for me, if I was making a remake of Field of Dreams, right? It would be he is struggling with what everyone assumes is chronic mental.
It's a great idea, yeah.
Right? No, but let me tell you, they've made this movie. It's called Take Shelter, and it's with the actor Michael Shannon. And he's plagued with visions about like an incoming storm, and so he becomes a prepper, right? And basically it's to protect his family, but everyone thinks he's chronically mentally ill, and the last shot of that movie is the storm coming in and him just looking there, and he's totally vindicated. It's a really good allegory for like dealing with mental illness, being singularly minded, you know, sacrifice for your family. It's a fucking wicked film, right? It's a wicked film. You could remake Field of Dreams. You could atom smash this movie with Take Shelter.
That would be a very interesting modern version.
And it would be a much stronger and more profound film. The problem is, unfortunately, it's so interested in being syrupy sweet, wearing its politics on its sleeve.
I don't have to listen to this from somebody who loves It's a Wonderful Life. Fuck you.
No, listen. One of the reasons I hate Roger Ebert's take on this movie, right? We're getting into the Ebert section of the show, right? He gave this movie a perfect 4 stars and said,
okay, I wouldn't go that far. Far.
It is like something Capra would have directed.
Oh, fuck.
I mean,
totally
Jimmy
disagree.
Stewart, if this movie was made 30 years earlier in 1959,
Roger
Jimmy Stewart
Ebert
would
said the same thing,
100% have started this movie.
And by the way, here's the problem, Monty. As you're saying that, I would love to see that film.
Right,
an actual 50s one with Jimmy Stewart. I'd be vibing with that, mate.
But let me. What that misunderstanding, because Roger Ebert misunderstanding basics of film critique again. What that is saying is that Capra didn't include any dark elements to his movies. That's fucking mental. As we've established,
the
it's a wonderful
and the
life.
Suicide.
Yeah, it's a wonderful life. So where's Kevin Costner wrestling with this premise? Like, because it is ridiculous. I am going to.
Well, I'll tell you, Richard, that's an area I don't think lands. This is why, if you're going to make it mystical, mate, I agree, make it mystical. Just make it about him and what happens with him spiritually. Because here's the part I don't get, Monty. The part that makes it feel overtly literal is that after the wife initially is like, yeah, go ahead with the baseball thing. Then after that, she's like, the fucking bills, we haven't got the acreage. As soon as it becomes about the pressure on him, the only pressure in the film, bear in mind, Terrence Mann doesn't fucking report to the police for trying to kidnap him for no reason. But the only pressure is the financial pressure. He's going to lose his farm, Monty.
It's pretty weird, I'll grant you, but building a field, that was weirder. 5-10% weirder.
I'm sorry, pal. I'm going to have to nip this one in the bud. We are having moderate to heavy financial difficulties here, and you can't take off for Boston while we're going broke in Iowa.
I mean,
which then leads to the ending being stupid, because if the ending was a metaphor about America and rediscovering its like passion and what it meant, that would be great. But the ending has to literally be that these people are coming to buy tickets, so he isn't going to be destitute.
Man.
That part, I feel that part feels too silly.
Buy tickets for what?
You know,
I don't
even know.
No
By the way,
one can
again,
see the
Richard,
ghosts.
I said this earlier. Why is it? Remember, Terrence Mann didn't write the polemical that made everyone follow us. Why would they hear about this and then they can go and pay tickets and see the ghosts? That's the part. I know I'm being literal on this one, but I have a hard time with that one.
You can't engage with the plot holes in Ghost Baseball. You can't. It's not the point. And you can't do it. Look, there's too many questions. Terrence Mann's like, I'm going to write about this. Goes and, is Terrence Mann dead the whole time? Who the fuck knows what's going on?
I also was expecting that, by the way. I also thought that could have been interesting too if it was that was a ghost too, or that was in his head or something. I actually thought that would have been interesting.
I agree. This does get caught up in the 80s
stuff.
by
the way, wait a minute. One thing we have to bring up, Monty, is the Terrence Mann character who starts with the most affrontish, like, fuck off vibe of, like, I'm not doing this. I'm only basically doing this because you're pretending to threaten me. You know what? All right, I'll do a bit of it, okay? He goes to the baseball game. He hears a voice and sees the thing. Doesn't go, did you hear it? Just goes, gonna play this cool. Cards close to the chest. And then he just later on, that guy goes, you did hear it, didn't he? He goes like, it's like, what? This would be a pretty big thing to mention. This is the whole reason that guy has kidnapped you.
Man, we were the only ones who saw it. Did you hear the voice too? It's all right to admit it. It's what told me to find you. Did you hear it?
Go the distance.
Yes.
I think I'd go. I wouldn't wait for them to.
But he didn't tell him about the voice. He didn't tell him about the voice at that time.
Yeah, he just heard it. Yeah, he didn't mention I'm hearing voices. He didn't say that until after.
Later.
But which, by the way, James Earl Jones, they could have equally just done a scene where he goes, did you hear that? Anyway, you're hearing the voices too. They could have done that scene. Yeah. But they didn't do that scene. Instead, it's like, play it cool, schizophrenia, play it
I just never know where I am with this film, basically, is the point. Like, it's not that
there's no rules. Like, Monty's
there are no rules.
Monty has absolutely nailed it. There are no rules.
But by the way, I'm just going to throw this out there. I actually do think a lot of people, I'm going to make a prediction in the comments. You'll all lie and say you didn't know. I'm guaranteeing, right, most people, assuming you watch the film before you listen to this review, you didn't clock after he goes back to the field from meeting Moonlight Graham, when that guy called whatever Graham, but not Moonlight Graham, when a young guy called, I bet you didn't clock that was him immediately. I did, because I remember the name Graham, but I'm a fucking serial online artist who looks for details like that. Like, you probably missed that, didn't you? Whereas that clearly is supposed to be a fucking foreshadowing.
Here's another question. Why does Archibald Graham become young in the present, but then he goes onto the field, but he's off the field before, but when he goes off the field again, he becomes old, and then he can't become young again. Okay, look, we can't ask the rules about Ghost Baseball. It's dumb, and it does. That's not the point.
All I'm going to say is, here's what I like about this series, Richard, is this series is actually the night side, the antithesis of fucking Nerd Legion, because it's always Monty doing exactly this to Dora with every single one of Dora's like ridiculous fucking favorite fantastic.
I'm pointing them out here.
That's more. You're the one always going, how would that work? He should have done that differently. But then now you're just a true believer. Like, just go with the flow.
I know why this is. I
totally understand. I am pointing out myself the plot holes here, and I understand that it's dumb. But what I'm going to talk about is, like, I think it's very interesting thematically, and I honestly think that this is a film that holds together very well from an emotional perspective and from the themes it explores. And I think also it hits differently as you get older, especially as a man, as you get older, than it does the first time you see it. And I think it can be quite profound. Is it the greatest movie ever?
I asked you a question.
But it has
I want to ask you specifically this. I said this when we were like doing a preamble on the past episodes. I want to know if this has some special connection to you because you're American, bro. Because remember, I told you there's a shorthand that you don't have in England unless you've watched movies, which is we don't have it. Like, by the way, Monty, spoiler, there was no equivalent to going and having a throw with baseball. And like that's not a thing you do to talk to your dad. So, by the way, this is the same thing for Hoosiers. I could have said in my town, Monty, I've never seen my school team play a game in any sport. Like there wasn't even tickets made. They just play. No joke. They played in empty arenas because they're only at the high school level. Like that wasn't a thing where the community gathered together. Right. So a lot of these things that are shorthanded are taken for granted in these films. I only know from experience in American culture and movies and stuff like. But as a result, since this whole movie's about a guy connecting with his dad or whatever, that doesn't immediately translate to me as someone English, for example. I don't even know what the equivalent would be really for that. So I wondered if for you, does that have a special connection?
Yes. And I'm not a baseball fan, by the way. And I never played baseball as, I was never in like Little League. I was never in high school baseball.
Okay.
And I don't even like baseball as a sport.
You're too busy reading the Iliad, some would say.
I was. I was a nerd.
I'll never forget the episode of Someone Inside Richard where I literally said to him, because he was recommended the fucking Iliad to viewers of a League of Legends. I said, they're never going to read it, mate. It's too hard. And he goes, what do you mean? I read it when I was 12. I was like, nah, I'm out. They aren't you, mate. They aren't you. That isn't our audience, buddy. That is not our audience.
Anyway.
Go back, yeah.
So I did play sports in high school, just not baseball.
Okay.
I played lacrosse. But anyway.
Oh, I was thinking athletics or something, whatever.
I played lacrosse.
Spelling bee, something like
that. But I think for any American, even one who is not baseball inclined like myself, I think baseball is very important. Because we do have, like you say, the memories of baseball and playing catch with our dads, and I certainly have that. I did when I was, I think, in elementary school, go to like some baseball summer camps or something like that, so I did have some experience. But I think it's not even the sport. It's the American summer that it reminds people of. You know what hits me really hard is when Ray Liotta is describing baseball as the smells of baseball and the experience of being on the field.
Oh, the smell of the glove and stuff.
The smell of the glove, the smell of the grass.
Right.
I'd wake up at night with the smell of the ballpark in my nose, the cool of the grass on my feet, the thrill of the grass.
That hits
getting into
hard.
Spinal Tap territory is smell the glove.
Spinal Tap 2 coming out soon, by the way. I hate to tell you.
A movie that didn't need a sequel. I know it's mental, innit? It's mental. Didn't need a sequel, mate. Didn't need one. I already said it all. Someone say it. Or that's like making a sequel to fucking Monty Python and the Holy Grail. You said it all. You said it all.
Look, I love Christopher Guest. I love a lot of his movies. I don't know why he's making a Spinal Tap 2. It's terrible. Anyway, that's not the point. But it is, I think it's very evocative of an American experience that unites America. And that's the whole point of baseball in this movie, is that it is the through line that transcends eras. It's the stories we tell each other. And going back to the Ken Burns documentary, I am not a baseball fan. I am a sports fan, and I love that documentary because it does such an amazing job of weaving baseball narratives together and showing it in contrast to the changes that are happening in America. And baseball is the constant because it's the longest running sport in America from the professional level. It was, until very recently, the biggest sport in America and is still among the biggest. It has the most weight to it. And I think that what is so cool about this film is that, it's not about the line of cars and what they're going to pay, which is really stupid that they say we're going to save the farm because all these people are coming to watch. Like, it's fucking dumb that they say that, okay? But that's really not the point. The point is that everybody is driving to this field to get lost in the innocence of summer and sports that baseball offers. That is why they are coming. Because
James Earl Jones says that when he's stroking out at the end, basically.
Yes.
He goes, no, don't listen to the brother offering
it's
to
also
save
very
the
terribly
family.
written. That part is the worst, some of the worst writing in the movie.
They will definitely come.
And they'll watch the game. And it'll be as if they'd dipped themselves in magic waters. The memories will be so thick, they'll have to brush them away from their faces.
Ray, when the bank opens in the morning, they'll foreclose.
When they were
I
watching
also
them,
love
they would
when
get
they-
lost in the...
Classic example of cinema too, where they do that thing where they present that like ginger fucking brother as the piece of shit. It's like, he's just actually a really nice guy trying to save his fucking
Yes, he is.
sister's dickhead brother from destituting his family. Like he is not. He is portrayed as this like it's the man. Like he's just a fucking nice guy. He isn't seeing ghosts. Remember?
He's like fucking Walter Peck from Ghostbusters or something.
Well, and also they never explain it to him, and clearly he's very reasonable because the instant he sees them, he's like, "We're keeping the farm." So
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, he is portrayed as an asshole for no reason.
Contrived villain, yeah, true.
Yeah.
Contrived
But I think what's great about this is that there's so much, I think, weight to this movie in different ways, and because baseball. You're right. I don't know if you have to be American, but it certainly helps to be American and have these experiences and understand baseball in reference to the history of America, because America's not that old, right? It's not. And baseball has probably been going on for literally half of American history. That's a long time for one sport to be professional because it started in the late 19th century. So it's literally like half of American history, and it becomes more than half the longer time America continues to survive, right? So it really is important as a multi-generational sport within America. Sure, I love the NFL. I like it way more than baseball. I think baseball is a dumb sport that is a team. I don't understand who designs a team-based game that is 90% a 1-versus-1 between a pitcher and the batter. It's a fucking flawed game. I don't like it. But I do like going to live baseball games, which was the experience of most of the 20th century pre-television, where everybody would go to the games. This is what happened. And it is an excellent game to go hang out with your friends at and have a fucking beer, and every 5 minutes one thing happens that you have to pay attention to, and then you're just chatting with your friends again. It doesn't demand a lot of attention, but it is beautiful to be in these stadiums. Like, I don't want to watch baseball on TV. If I was back in America and you said, "Hey, let's go to a game," I would go to a game 100%. I go to a lot of games probably. But this was the American experience. And so because it is inescapable in America that you have some sort of affiliation with baseball, whether you like it or you don't like it, like me. And there is something about it that unites the country, and there's something that unites time and experience. And what this film is about uniting people across time. And it's about breaking down the eras and showing what are the core values and what unites America, even in differences. Urban versus versus country, hippie versus, lover of,
or whatever,
conservative, right?
Oh, you are right as well, Monty. Another thing, as you referenced earlier, the fact that this is in 1989 is relevant. This is at the end of the decade where everyone's just like, money, money, money. Who gives a fuck? Drugs? It's all just materialism. Yeah, of course.
It also, I think, is very saccharine because the 80s were a rough time in the Cold War. It's the Reagan era, and you're right, it is money, money, money. But it's also like this was. At this point in time, remember that the Berlin Wall fell in 89. This is the denouement of the Cold War. Like, it is
I'm glad you're bringing that up, actually, because it was, we've talked about 80s cinema quite a lot. You get towards
But there's a sense of optimism in the world that the Cold War is winding down.
Yeah, a lot of the 80s was very cynical. In media, right? A lot of it was very cynical, and American cinema was very money focused, and it was about presenting, the idea of the American hero, but almost from a militaristic perspective. It was about portraying strength and ingenuity.
Well, the early 80s was when the Cold War was really ramping up really heavily. It wasn't until Reagan and Gorbachev got into conversations in the mid-'80s that things started to wind down a little bit. But there was a big escalation in, like, 83, for example.
Well, like what Richard's saying is, it's like if you ever watched the first Rambo film, which isn't Rambo, it's First Blood, obviously. When you watch that has nothing to do with the other Rambo movies. Like, they just take that character and they go, "Fuck it, you are America." And then he just goes off and kills all America's enemies.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, what does that have to do with the first film? Like, the first film was like an interesting, again, like psychological thing about a man. What does war do to people? He's interfacing with people. Like, the next films are just like, "You are Captain America, kill them all." Like, hell,
Rambo 2 is so. I mean, also
ridiculous.
The fact that it was called First Blood Part 2.
It's hilarious itself.
Right.
I love it.
That's how Riot would name tournaments.
So yeah,
they're like first stand. Yeah, that's a phrase that people have used before. First stand. Yeah, nailed it.
But I mean, obviously, that's like the middle of the 80s, you know, the sequel to Rambo. And yeah, it's like a lot of American cinema, particularly obviously in the action genre, it was about portraying American strength that way. And so, yeah, I think this movie is interesting from the perspective of, you know, we're at the end of the 80s. And
yeah, but it's also that the age is turning. Right?
Yeah,
just
exactly.
as at the end of the 60s, the age turned.
Yes. Yeah,
you know, it's directly referenced from the hippies, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., to Richard Nixon, right? And the rise of the Vietnam War. This is a time period in which the Cold War, which has been terrifying people, rightfully so, for the last 30 fucking years, 40 years almost, 40 years really, is starting to like wind down, and there's a sense of optimism, and you see this in 90s films, right? That there is much more optimism, and this is you know, and it's a result of the changing political climate.
Now, what I will say, right, is I fucking detest the scene where his wife stands up and argues with that woman.
At least he is not a book burner, you Nazi cow.
At least I'm not married to the biggest horse's ass in 3 counties.
All right, Beulah, do you want to step outside?
Fine!
Yeah, it's not very subtle.
That is
like the joke is that's the one scene that could be in a modern film. That is some libtard.
Yeah, that is absolute dog shit. That is absolute dog shit. You want
Did you see how I owned that Nazi cow? It's terrible. It's bad. It's bad.
And she comes
it's like a Twitter interaction for real. Like you bloody Nazi, you bloody fascist.
That was like the 60s all over again. Also, as well, just a crowd of hicks who were like,
and then she wins them all over instantly as well.
You have to understand
who loves free speech. Raise your hand. It is. It's the worst scene in the movie.
What would have happened in that scene as well if they had got their ways? It would have been talking about Catcher in the Rye.
Yes,
right. Because it would have been J.D. Salinger. So there were a bunch of hicks would have been like, this book is filth and pornography, like Catcher in the Rye, an American classic. Like, it would have been worse if it had been J.D. Salinger rather than some fictitious writer with a fictitious book. That scene is garbage, and it doesn't even need to be there because it's all restated by the James Earl Jones character in a much more sophisticated
it's complete, and it
way.
also is irrelevant. Like, I don't think this is a perfect film by any means, but why I like this movie is because it does resonate. And I want to go back to what I talked about earlier, which is the very weird line at the beginning of this film, which is, I never forgave my father for getting old, which is like, what the fuck? Who would say that? That's such a strange thing to say. But it is about the perception of who people are as they age, as the eras shift, as attitudes shift. And what's so interesting about the character that they set up for John Kinsella, who's Ray Kinsella's dad, is that what did he do wrong? His mom died and he raised Ray as a single dad who, by all accounts, Ray himself says, he did as good a job as he could, and he worked really hard. And the only thing he did was never be spontaneous. He was a parent who was creating a stable environment for his child and not being crazy, not abusive, as far as we know. We're never led to believe that he is abusive in any way. By all means, he was doing the job and doing his duty that he should have done. So why is it that Ray is so weird about this whole thing? And it turns out that it's because of how Ray treated him. It wasn't anything that John Kinsella did, right? Yeah. He's not guilty of anything. And if anything, this is Ray who is coming to terms with himself being a father now and understanding what his own dad was going through.
There's a saying, Monty, that goes something like, until you are a parent, you are always the child. And it's like, actually, I think it's what you're getting at. It's quite a profound statement. It's the notion that, like, when you're young, the things you resent your parents for, when you become older, you actually sometimes realize they were doing a good job in that area. Or that was actually, like, they were actually going above and beyond the circumstances. But to you can't see the constraints and the pressures and things. I think there's some of that in this film for sure.
Yeah, of course. But all the people have regrets. It's regret that they lost their passion and profession because they threw this World Series. It's Ray Kinsella's regret that he said horrible things to his father and ditched him after, by all accounts, his father was a good dad and wanted a relationship with him. And it's about him understanding that now and then wanting to go back to those halcyon days where they could play catch and have that interaction. He craves that now, right?
Am I missing something, Monty? Is in the film they try to make it, to me, overt that the ghost of his dad doesn't recognise him, except at the end when he sort of says something that alludes that he does. I don't understand that part either,
says
because as
dad
far as
at
I can
the
tell,
end.
they're not doing that with the baseball people, you know? So, like, I'm not saying explain the mechanism, but what do you interpret that to be?
Look, it's just more ghost baseball shit. I think it's weird.
Okay.
I don't agree with the way that
Instead of it's
portrayed.
Chinatown, your whole thing to me is just Ghost Baseball Authority.
Yeah.
Look, it's not good.
Forget about it, Duncan.
I know.
And I'm not saying forget about it. It's not good, and I don't think it's clear because at the end he says, "Dad, do you want to play catch?"
Yeah.
And maybe it's never
And he
clear
doesn't
whether.
go, wait a minute, I'm not your dad. I'm just
He
a guy
doesn't
called
say.
Lincoln.
He
say
doesn't.
that, I know,
There's
yeah.
no moment whether he recognizes whether he knows or not. I would assume. I mean, you don't know. It's left ambiguous. I don't think it's one of those instances where leaving it ambiguous.
I'm only
is
saying
a
this to
strong
be a
decision
prick,
either.
but why didn't they just have his dad come back younger and then meet him and then actually have an experience and then teleport forwards into? Why don't they do that as well? Like Moonlight Graham?
Look,
yeah,
man.
I guess. Sorry, my bad. The rules didn't apply that way.
Yeah.
That was when they changed again. Oh, bloody.
Taps the ghost baseball sign.
Look, I don't like the way they did the end. Like I said, I don't think that this is a moment where ambiguity is a strength, right? I think the whole movie is leading up to this moment, and leaving it ambiguous as to whether his dad recognizes that he is his dad or not is not a good choice. It's not. And I think it does take away from that moment.
Hey, Dad? You want to have a catch?
I'd like that.
But I think
Because you know what I mean? Like, they could have done it the same way, Monty. Like, have it start like he doesn't know him. He's just, an ethereal ghost. You can even do the angle of, like, ghosts. And in this scenario, people who still have some attachment to the world and they can't let it go to heaven. You could do that whole story. And then what you should do, like you're saying, is at the end, there should just be the realization where he sort of like, oh my God, it is my son. Like, I hope you didn't resent me for what some shit like that. I think that would have made the movie a bit harder.
This movie is already so sentimental. Having the moment of forgiveness. Beyond a joke.
Beyond
it is.
By the way, this will hurt your
with-
feelings, but this is some
It's a
Hallmark
Wonderful
shit,
Life in terms of
It's
sentimentality.
really going hard. on the
It
fucking-
caps
yeah.
on. It is the max sentimental. So in this film, it is not inappropriate for his dad to give him a hug at the end and give a sign of
totally
forgiveness. In fact, it
be a
sticks
good
with
payoff.
the tone of the film. It could have been better. Yes, obviously. Like it's for me, it's definitely a flawed film, but it hits really hard emotionally. And like you say, maybe it's because of the American connection with baseball, and I have this connection to baseball because I am American. But it's also that it does present a very optimistic view of the country of America and the trauma between generations, not only whether it's a parent and child between generations, but just generations of people in general who are in conflict with each other. The idea that there is this pure thing, and like as Richard said earlier about Shoeless Joe and the fact that his cheating stripped some of the innocence out of America. This is a restoration of American innocence by having him come back and really just be very honest about the purity of joy that is baseball, right?
Yeah.
And it is about this through line that connects the generations of America. It's about what connects people to the land of America, which is a very like Arthurian interpretation of this. But it is about the land because Ray Kinsella himself is not a farmer. Right? He is a man who comes from the city, who has become a farmer, who has gained a connection to the American land in a way that he didn't have before. He is learning how to be in communication with the land. And the land itself becomes the baseball field through his vision. And it's not California. It's the American heartland. It's fucking Iowa. It's the most rural of the rural cornfields. And it's this vision that he has. This is mythic in the way that they interpret this, right? Mm-hmm. And it is the connection to the land of America that is important. They are making a statement that there is no difference between the game of baseball, the fluidity of time and the land of America. And I think that's really profound. And that's what I like about this movie.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can't disagree with why the movie why it is an important piece of Americana. I understand why Americans vibe with this movie, but it is there's so much I think you could strip out or do differently.
Sure.
I hate the opening. I hate when Kevin Costner is just so completely unfazed when fucking Ray Liotta is just out in his fucking field.
He does it. They even do that thing. It's like, there's a guy outside. Oh, it's there.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Also,
I'm just going to play baseball.
I meant to like Kevin Costner just tetchily shouting at his own child, right? The reason you're stressed right now is because you built a fucking ghost baseball field.
Also,
by the way, even though I do remember this film, I also think that part's weird. Where when it says a build it, right? You figure you're going to make a spot. It makes a full fucking. It looks like the real fucking practice ground.
I mean, imagine the electricity costs of putting the poles and the floodlights.
The entire premise that he makes that is
the financial thing also makes no sense because it's only a baseball field worth of corn. That isn't enough corn to bankrupt you. That's not going to be farms are big.
That's the deal breaker. They're going to just fall short of breaking even now, Monty.
Look, that just means he was one bad harvest away from going under.
Total ruin. Yeah. The whole time.
Basically, he was already on the edge. But anyway, a baseball field is not big enough for that corn to be worth enough money for it to completely ruin and bankrupt him. That's crazy.
Yeah. So all of the premise, all of that stuff. Then, as I said, he's just out there, right? So are you bothered that there's a ghost there yet? Nah, I'm just gonna. Here you go, mate. I'm fucking bop. Just talking to Ray Liotta, by the way, because as I said, because Shoeless Joe Jackson was basically illiterate. Ray Liotta's interpretation of that character is
he almost never speaks, bro.
Well, I mean, look, you want to see Ray Liotta's job in this movie? It's to wear an old-timey baseball uniform and look over his shoulder with his mouth slightly open like this.
Bro, he's talking like fucking Nate.
This is him. This is him the whole movie. This is his job, is to look like this.
No, but you can't do that to someone who's historically illiterate. You can't make him talk like that. You can't, but he did. So I hate all of that. Then it immediately segues. What? Just when you're starting to get a handle on, this is kind of cool. Kevin Costner sat here with his kid. The Black Sox dudes are all here now. He's just watching them play baseball. This is fine. They then have the horrible scene with the Nazi cow. That is mental. That scene is so stupefyingly bad. It doesn't belong in this movie at all. It doesn't belong in any movie, frankly. Then the movie gets good because it's Road Trip with James Earl Jones. I love that part,
by the way.
Yeah, all of that part's wicked. Spooky ghost Burt Lancaster turns up. That's wicked. The whole monologue Burt Lancaster gives about where he says, I would have regretted more being a doctor for only 5 minutes over a baseball. Yep. That's
banger line.
They actually don't hit that hard enough.
I know exactly. Yeah. That is so
But
sick.
it's also about small town America where it's it's cool to be a major star, right? But imagine the good he did in his community by being a local doctor for decades.
Correct. But then the movie immediately goes back to being dog shit because he picks up the young version of Burt Lancaster on hitchhiking for no reason. He gets in.
And he doesn't even go, wait a minute. Graham?
I know. Bro, he gives his name. Hi, I'm Archie Graham.
I know.
Gets in and not, right, James Earl Jones has been established as this character. He is, by the way, he gets on board way too quickly with Ghost Baseball.
Agreed.
He goes from being a hardened cynic who lost all of his fucking love for humanity, a total recluse, gonna batter Kevin Costner to death with a crowbar, and then immediately we're just picking up hitchhiking Ghost Baseball players from the past. Yeah, he was
Cochrane, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, that's mental. It's so mental that entire bit.
It's why I genuinely thought even though I know the films, I know this one, I genuinely thought the reveal would be that, like, Sixth Sense style, James Earl Jones was a ghost too.
I know.
Surely.
The problem is you can't keep having James Earl Jones as a fucking Force ghost. He's a Force ghost in like 50% of his fucking movies at this point. He's, Mufasa. He did it in he did it in Black Panther as well. Vader. It's like, come on, stop making. You can't make James Earl Jones a Force ghost in every film. But anyway, so then, right
now he's an AI. You guys know he's an AI Force ghost in Fortnite now, right?
Yeah, I know. Like, by the way, dystopias aren't real, guys.
No,
don't worry
that's
about
one of those things you will live to see man-made horrors that are indescribable, whatever. And like, I don't need to see my childhood heroes puppeted by a demon on fucking to sell me Fortnite for again. Like, this is some nightmare fuel. You couldn't make that worse, could you? You couldn't make that more horrifying.
So anyway, next scene, talking of horrifying, right? Young Burt Lancaster, possible Force ghost James Earl Jones, and evil ginger brother for no reason evil.
Oh, wait, I have to just throw one more thing in, boys.
Yeah,
I forgot this. And Monty, I'm trying my hardest with the ghost baseball. But why does a real human get to go to heaven in the field as well?
Yeah.
Was he
Monty,
always
the
dead?
rules, the rule, exactly. If he'd have been a ghost, it was okay. If it was Sixth Sense, this would work. It doesn't. That real human just goes off to corn heaven or whatever.
I'm just going to be to corn heaven.
What are we doing here?
I know. But anyway, so then, for no reason, there's just a scene where the ginger guy is so angry about them potentially losing the farm because of ghosts he can't see. He launches the kid off the fucking bleachers. She lands on her back while eating a hot dog, right? By the way, that is the easiest medical problem to solve. Object in throat, smash back, object removed, right? Anybody could do that. They're all going, oh my God, I don't know what's wrong. How are you a parent?
Oh, yeah, remember what I said earlier?
Right.
None of you, when you watched it, picked up on his name being Graham, even though it's literally the scene afterwards.
Yeah.
So then when someone goes, is there a doctor? It's like, fucking hell, bro. Do you want it in neon lights or something? Man,
but how does past Burt Lancaster know future Burt Lancaster?
He's not a doctor at that time. Exactly, Richard. He hasn't become a doctor yet. So how would he be?
I know.
It's okay.
But also,
tap the sign.
Ghost baseball. All the dickheads are just like incapable of figuring out what's wrong with the kid. Not a doctor. Past ghost baseball man steps out.
It's essentially literally like a Heimlich maneuver type thing.
Yeah,
come on, for fuck's
turns
sake,
into a doctor, just walks over slowly, no urgency, of course, goes, hey, there's a hot dog in her throat.
Steady now. Hot dog, stuck in her throat. Oh, she'll be all right. She'll be turning handsprings before you know it.
Right, he threw away his chance to live in fucking corn heaven, playing his favourite game forever to do exactly that.
Except, Richard, I still don't... I know, Monty, I can't stop getting dragged back into that quicksand. I still don't understand, since they're all dead, why he can't just go back to corn heaven and play.
That's
he
what
isn't
I said.
alive! He isn't alive. So at the end, when he transforms
That's
back,
what I said.
yes, poignant, beautiful.
That's what I said earlier.
Well,
here's the thing.
Sorry, mate, you're out of corn heaven.
There isn't even a rule. There isn't even a rule. Like once he steps into the infield, he gets younger.
Exactly. How
because he was younger, went in, but then got old and went out, but can't go in again.
Forever.
If you leave corn heaven to save a child's life, you are banished from corn heaven.
Look, those are just the rules of corn heaven, okay?
So anyway, then, right, so he's banished to corn hell, and then the ginger can now just see the ghosts, and everyone goes to corn heaven, and then his dad turns up from corn heaven. Possibly, we didn't see him walk out of the corn. By the way, why didn't they
foreshadow that earlier in the film? Why does that come out? No, there's another thing. When I remember this movie from the 90s, when I watched it, Richard, like, I remember that being like the central point was about his dad. His dad fucking turns up like right at the end. Yeah. Like, what?
Right at the end, and it does. Is he his dad? Is he not his dad? So basically, what you've constructed here, right, is a movie that has a really good, not really good, but it has a good center. I definitely agree with that. I think James Earl Jones's character all of the road trip, going to the baseball game. There's some really funny lines just all around that. Not just in his apartment, but when he goes like, "What do you want?" And he like goes, "What do I want?" And he gives like a monologue about like how he wants American society to change. And he goes, "No, what do you want, Mitch? You want to?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah." He goes, "I'll take a dog and a beer."
So what do you want?
I want them to stop looking to me for answers, begging me to speak again, write again, be a leader. I want them to start thinking for themselves, and I want my privacy.
No, I meant, what do you want?
Right,
and those guys,
but that's the whole point of the movie, is that it is that simple.
Yeah, exactly.
It is that simple at times. You're all caught up in the bullshit, but the real shit is just having a beer and a dog with your
but
friend.
That's the point. But in that case, why not make it real baseball over spooky ghost baseball and corn heaven and things that have none of it? But anyway, so I really enjoy. Basically, James Earl Jones steals this fucking movie from under Kevin Costner in a way that you cannot even believe it's happening, even as it's happening. Every line, he delivers it perfectly. You know, I think about all the great dialogue Ray Liotta got, and he's just delivering it like, say, like Nate Diaz. When they took baseball from me, they amputated. Oh, fuck off, dickhead. You're being given gold there. That's script writing gold.
I bet he was like method acting it on the set as well.
Look,
like,
no, you can't even believe that's the actor that goes on to do
We all know
Goodfellas.
Ray Liotta is extremely hit or miss. There's no middle ground. He's either bad or good, and there's nothing in the middle.
We all remember his Oscar-winning performance in Revolver.
But he also did Goodfellas. He's good at Goodfellas.
I know you think Revolver's better than this movie, but anyway, right? And by the way, I'm conflicted.
And I can forgive all the whatever it was, whatever that shit was. It's all good. In that movie, I forgive it all.
Put it this way: Revolver is easier to understand than the rules of Ghost Baseball. That I will agree with, right?
Because similarly, by the way, here's another part that doesn't make sense. If the Doctor, who hasn't yet become a doctor, can perform the scenes of a doctor, why can't his father, who isn't his father yet, but know that he's his father anyway?
Whatever. So anyway, so you have all of that wicked stuff in the middle. Burt Lancaster's just fucking great. His speech is great. His scene is great. The way Kevin Costner and James Earl Jones forged this unlikely friendship, it's great. The way James Earl Jones is immediately like just on board with it. It's rekindled his passion for life, his belief in America. That's all great. That's wicked. But his book ended by total dog shit. Like in his book, the ending doesn't land, the beginning doesn't work, and it's like.
By the way, how much funnier would the movie be though if it was just J.D. Salinger? Though it would be such a sacrilegious movie at that point in time.
It's no wonder. It's no wonder he was like, look.
They saved themselves not being able to use his name.
Yeah, it's no wonder. Like, he's like J.D. Salinger was like, I can't go back in time and make that dickhead not write the short story about me, but you are not putting me in this. There's no fucking way. But anyway, and also I remember this movie being a tearjerker. It is. I didn't cry, and I'm a pussy, and I'm super easy to make cry with movies. Just anything, like just the right little sting of music, or the brave heroes died. Or, I like to say I watched fucking Hacksaw Ridge, rewatched for about the 10th time. I might add, know exactly all the beats that's coming. Oh God. He just wants to not hold a gun, please. Why are you doing this to Darcy? Floods it is. There's nothing in this that hits that level of poignant. It doesn't get there.
It does for me.
You didn't cry. Did you cry? You cried.
Maybe a single tear. I think it does hit. Like I said, I think it's an American. As you get older, like that dad relationship intermingled with baseball.
Also, I am not a parent.
That's also true.
Yeah, so probably different if you are. But I mean, like, yeah, for me, unfortunately, the movie is just too problematic. It's got too much bad to be truly good. And
I agree that it could be. There's an interesting remake here. By the way, just as an aside, they were threatening to remake this as a TV show starring Chris Pratt, which would have been fucking horrible. So thank God they didn't do that. But I do think it's a remake because if you actually are focused on the core themes of the movie, and like we've discussed, if you do make it more magical realism and you get away from all the stupid shit that we've brought up, I do think there's a really interesting and powerful idea here, and it does. I struggle with this because you have like the yelling at the school scene, which is so badly written, but then you have some really well written parts to this movie that I think are very profound.
It does make me wonder. I mean, like, look, I didn't love the movie enough to go and do this. If it was a better film, I probably would have. But it does make me wonder how much of the dialogue that is good is from the story, and how much of the dialogue that is bad is from the story. Because it's like, then you get into the premise of, like, adaptation, where they hobbled by just the source text. But, for me, unfortunately, the problem you've got is, if you're going to be a magical, realism genre movie, well, you have to really go hard in the paint with that. Like, I'm trying to think of a good analog for something like that. But, if you're going to have a there you go. I've got it. It's Green Mile. At no point does Green Mile ever fucking, like, get a bit too straight-laced or a bit too,
the financial troubles and like that reality really does hamstring this movie. I agree to a large degree.
And when you think about something like Green Mile, it's like you understand that why Johnny Coffey has it's not explicitly stated why he has the powers, but you know that he does, and you know how they work, and there's consistent rules to it.
By the way, since you normally have this info, was this movie a success? Because I remember at the time it being hailed. That's one thing I'm shocked by, because I do think a lot of people bounce off David Lynch films and stuff. So I'm kind of shocked by how out there they try to make the movie.
This film made a lot of money at the time, but even beyond that, Thorin, it's really the cultural relevance of this movie that is astonishing. Like, I think most Americans have probably seen this movie at some point in time.
I think this is another one that got put in the archive, by the way, just for context.
Yeah. And also, even in the last few years, Thorin, the Major League Baseball has been playing a Field of Dreams game where they go to Iowa, to a cornfield, make the diamond, and they do a game there. And not only that, but the original
field. The movie, you daft fucks.
I think it's kind of cool. But anyway, even now, we're 30.
I want the NHL to go and have a Mighty Ducks game every game, you brave.
I mean, they kind of do. The NHL does that thing where they do the outdoor games.
Let's do an escape to victory game in Germany.
They do the outdoor games. So there has been, especially with the NHL and MLB, like a push to do this. But they have done this not every year, but I think they stopped sometime during COVID. Somebody can comment if they know more about baseball than I do, but they have been doing it within the last 5 years. And not only that, but the field that they made for this movie is still there in Iowa, and it receives tens of thousands of visitors every year. So it's like, actually,
they did come in the end.
They did come.
They did come. And Kamala Harris said, "Do not come." And they did.
So
they did come.
I don't know why they don't do the Field of Dreams game on that field. It may not be big enough, maybe. I'm not sure what the reasoning is, but they built a field directly next to that one where they do play those games. So just in terms of cultural relevance, I mean, that's why I think, regardless of whether you bounce off this movie or not, this is just one of those films that you kind of have to see because it is referenced everywhere.
Yeah, that is another aspect to the film. In terms of its cultural impact, it really can't be understated. And, honestly, it's probably responsible for a lot of... I mean, look, I still think, by the way, this is baseball Close Encounters of a Third Kind, essentially. If you think about it like that, it makes sense. But ultimately, there's a bunch of movies that are kind of like this. Modern films where it's like, dude is compelled to do a thing that makes no sense. Family are a little bit like, he does thing has good ramifications, positive ramifications, and is often connected to some sort of mystical or spiritual aspect.
Yeah, besides, if this movie hadn't been made, we would have never gotten Christopher Lloyd classic Angels in the Outfield. So
yeah, correct. Exactly the movie I was alluding to. So obviously there is that. But I mean, it's just not a very well written movie, and I think, unfortunately, it also, the marketing around this movie doesn't even make any sense. Like, the poster is just Kevin Costner. All of the interviews with Kevin Costner. They were setting it up as like Kevin Costner is a heartthrob in this movie. There's no romantic aspect to it. He's just already married to to the most amazing wife who's ever lived, right? He's already got his kid who, as I said, when she does learn what words mean, she's going to be great. And then, so there isn't a the romance, if you like, is a romantic element in the more poetic sense. It's a romantic love letter to America and spooky ghost baseball. But it's such a weird. But I think it's cool. Like, look, so weird.
Look, as much as we agree that this film doesn't stick the landing, I think it's cool that this extremely weird movie is as famous as it is. It's very weird. It's very strange, and they definitely took a big risk making this film.
No one ever mentions that it's some sort of surrealistic film. It's always presented like Richard says, like a very straight film. I was kind of shocked.
Yeah, exactly. A man builds baseball field. Ghosts turn up. Ghost of his dad turns up. He learns to love his dad again through the mechanism of baseball, and everybody cries at the end. That's how I remembered Field of Dreams. That Field of Dreams is not that. It is not that at all. It is fucking bizarre. It is actually a bizarre movie. It just is strange.
By the way, I also, for some reason in my memory, thought he played in the games and that was all it was about. No. That's how he got to remember that. It just didn't watch him. Like, what?
Turns out Kevin Costner isn't even good at baseball.
No, it's weird. That's another thing that's so weird about this film.
Yeah, it's just
see if you can hit my curveball. Easily.
I think
he was a professional fucking.
I think one of the best players. One of the best. A Hall of Famer player might be able to hit your curveball, Kevin Costner. You fucking moron.
See if you can hit my curve. Oh. Yeah, you can hit the curveball.
but it's just like it's like Duncan go, wait till you see my blitzcrank or whatever. Like, no, fuck off! Like, you're not beating Faker in a 1v1, are you? So the whole movie is just bizarre to me. And like I say, I went in. Put it this way: Hoosiers didn't make me cry. But I felt the emotions of the movie. This, I was just sat there writing things down, going, "What the fuck?" Honestly,
you got caught up in the rules of Ghost Baseball, man. Yeah, that's your first mistake.
But it does make me wonder if a modern audience, because again, the very specific time it was released, it all makes sense. It makes sense. I think, because you know how they do say this, depending on when a movie gets released, even to the month, it can totally change whether the movie's successful or not. And this one was a roaring success. But I think if you release this early 90s even, I don't think this movie can succeed.
I disagree. There were a bunch of dog shit sports movies in the 90s that
probably because of this, though, right? So and look, I'm not saying. Look, I mean, maybe mid 90s then, but if you release this early 80s, this movie would have bombed. I have no doubt about that. America was not ready, America. So it was just released at the right time, and ultimately, I guess America's fascination with itself really plays in.
But I mean, to
how this film works.
This was the herald of all of those ridiculous 90s feel-good sports movies. Those movies were eventually about. Think about them now. Angels of the Outfield, popular movie. Mighty Ducks, popular movie. Cool Runnings, popular movie. These were all early 90s films, early to mid 90s films that are very optimistic and cheesy.
They're optimistic and cheesy, but first of all, Cool Runnings was based on a true story, right? Sure. Do just want to put that out there. It was something that actually happened.
I mean, I love Cool Runnings, so
yeah, same. Cool Runnings should have been in this arc.
I fucking love
really.
Cool Runnings.
Right. Cool Runnings should have been in this arc. So, but also, I mean, there's no mystical element to any of those. That's what I mean about this movie just being fucking weird. It's it's not in Cool Runnings that the
I think it makes it interesting.
Of one of the bobsled.
I agree that it falls short of its ambition. Yeah. But I think its ambition is really cool, and I think that its emotional core and thematic core is very strong. And I do think that there are really good moments in this movie. And I think if you think about this film, it's
all
it's
of them
much
involving
more...
James Earl Jones and or Burt Lancaster.
I think that this rewards you for thinking about it in a way that other sports films of the eras don't. Like, it tries to do something deeper. It does.
Yeah, I mean, which, that's fair. For me, I would have wanted a bit more baseball in my baseball movie. I think that's reasonable. There's not a single game of baseball played in this movie. Not an actual full game.
We got a great new meme for our show. We had the werewolf break. We have night moves now. And now we have you don't question the rules of ghost baseball.
You
don't.
By the way, do you notice actually a theme of this arc, especially once we do all the films, is they're not really about sports. Sports is just a vehicle to talk about social issues, personal issues, development as a human, etc., society, community. It's actually like more the essence of sport than the sport. Because actually, I mean, Hoosiers had a bit, but like a lot of these films aren't really about playing the sport or even watching sport action.
Yeah, it's true. And look, which is why sports, all the best sports movies do that. But this, unfortunately, I'll probably never watch this ever again. Between now and death, there's no reason to watch this.
I definitely
again.
will be.
I know you will be. By the way, also, Monty, I just want to point out you are one of history's greatest monsters because do you know who else loves this movie? George W. Bush said it was his favourite.
There you go.
George W. Bush didn't cry for all the Iraqi civilians that got absolutely bombed in his illegal war, but he cried over fucking Field of Dreams because it reminded him of playing catch with his dad, apparently. So.
Well, strange bedfellows, eh?
Yeah, there you go. Well, so all of Monty's detractors, one of history's greatest monsters right now. So, but anyway, just to put a pin in it.
Was George W. one of history's greatest monsters, or was he just the vessel for one of history's greatest monsters?
Well,
the vehicle.
Here we go. Now we're doing the rules of spooky presidential.
I mean, the joke there being, Richard, he just means like real political, people with machinations used him.
Yeah.
I would go, yes, he was. The demonic forces, the archonic entities did sort of operate through him. You're right. That's quite profound, actually.
I'd just say he was an inhumane cunt, but that's the wonderful thing about this podcast. We are three different people with different perspectives.
I don't think he
or
was.
At least you would say that if you were at a
enough,
school board.
Anyway.
If you were at a school board meeting, Richard, that's what you'd get up and say.
Yeah, I get it. Who's for free speech?
I know.
Who's for the First Amendment? Now, what about the Bill of Rights?
Is this America?
Yeah,
is this America, everyone?
This is like the 60s, man.
I love it.
Between this and the Last of Us Part 2.
By the way, I'm also
whatever.
with you.
Ooh,
Aside from that wife seems almost impossibly lovely, except that one scene just breaks all character.
Yeah, true. He's just annoying. But I guess they had to find a way to crowbar in the writer. So it just so happened to be his book being banned. Like, fuck off.
Oh, see, right.
That's why.
Which also it doesn't contribute to Terrence Mann at all, because there are obviously other ways you can set up Terrence Mann.
Also, I hate this movie trope. If I'm obsessed with solving a problem, a cryptic problem that has been given to me, which was ease his pain in this instance, right? Yeah. Ease his pain. Right. Why do I need to write the words "ease his pain" down on a piece of paper in a variety of silly fonts?
Pretty memorable, I reckon. No, he's basically writing it down, Richard, like a high school girl doodles dreaming about dating the king. Mrs. Eleanor Simpson. Like he is doing it like that.
Like why? What does that do? How does that help? Just stop doing that in films. Nobody does that. Like, I've really got to figure out what ease his.
The sad thing is, Richard would do like a fucking director's cut where he just does get put in.
Mate, my director's cut of this film would be 30 minutes. Like that, it wouldn't even make an episode of television. And there is the perfect place for me to conclude. This is a movie that has, like, the high notes are high, but they are not sustained. The low notes are unbelievably low and cliched and hackneyed and bad and just straight up bad. Kevin Costner's performance in this is flat and one note. The movie is essentially not even about his dad, even though everyone remembers it that way. It's really an elegy for fucking Shoeless Joe, and really Otter plays him like he's got brain damage. So, it's just, I mean, there was a really good idea here. I would have loved to have seen, like, a different adaptation, a different screenplay, a different director. But unfortunately, what we got is, how hard can James Earl Jones carry a fucking film? Turns out pretty damn hard, because the only time I was thinking, the only time I was actually engaged with the screen was when James Earl Jones was there, putting on a masterclass. Everything else, I mean, fuck that. You know, because you could also just have it go like, build it and he will come, and then who's he? It's James Earl Jones. He's like, I've been compelled to come here. I've been a recluse for all this time. Oh, I don't even know who you are, Terrence Mann. Goes online, has a look. Oh shit, Terrence Mann, you've been a recluse, so why have you come here? And why? I haven't even read your stuff. They read the article, he finds his dad's name in there, they go on the road trip, they bump into Moonlight Graham, then his dad turns up at the end. You know, you didn't...
You referenced it earlier, but it does get to me that he wrote about his dad who has the same fucking surname, and he doesn't ever go, oh, you're a fan of my work. You are the son of that. No, that doesn't even occur. By the way, Monty, this is an example where screenwriters fuck up, because if you're an author, and this author hasn't written that much stuff, you would know your own work impeccably. You would know every fucking name and reference. And so
this, I was going to put this out there for you guys to make you mad. The writer and director of this was nominated for Best Director, Best Picture, and Best Adapted Screenplay at the Academy Awards.
You will be completing the arc without me.
No,
it is.
So
it's
all the things you hate. The people love.
Look, there is ultimately.
Allow me to just ease my pain.
Look, that happens in so many movies where ultimately, you know, particularly with Academy Awards and stuff, you know, like what they call Oscar bait now. This is a very Oscar baity kind of movie in that sense. It knows exactly, it's pushing the right buttons, but just for me, it's pushing them in the fucking wrong way. So, because I'm susceptible to those buttons too, but I wasn't in this film. This film didn't make me miss my dad or long for a better time. Even just in the context of the story, it didn't even make me sad. It didn't make me want to revise what I know about Shoeless Joe Jackson. It just made me love fucking James Earl Jones. Which I already did. So, you know, fuck you, Field of Dreams. You're in the bin. That's my review. Fuck Roger Ebert, too, for giving this 4 stars.
By the way, I will say, like, I'm not a massive Kevin Costner fan, but I do think he can be good. Like, for example, I do think he is the best thing about that Yellowstone show. Like, he does a very good job. And I do think as he aged out, he got better as an actor and got, like, a bit of sort of, like, presence and a bit more of, like, a subtle toolkit. In this film, he's just, like, it could be any of a million fucking Hollywood stars. It's just given a normal performance. I mean, so that part didn't capture
It's not a meaty role. I think that's the problem, is there's no room in this role to act.
Sure.
But,
yeah.
Basically, my main problem with this film is, like, it's actually more interesting to discuss, like, what it was trying to allude to and what that could reference than actually watch the film to me. Like, whereas, unfortunately to me, Monty, that is almost a rule of a film. I need to just... The experience of watching the film is the same thing about the film. It can't be like, yeah, but bonus points for referencing this, and you could have done that. Like, I don't think... essentially, I don't think the execution is very good. I think this film needs to be...
If you want to see a good baseball movie with Kevin Costner in it, you go watch Bull Durham. You don't watch this.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so,
well,
you know.
Like we said, though, I think this was kind of necessary for our sports arc because it is
unavoidable.
One of the inescapable
the Thanos
sports
of the
movies.
sports arc. Yeah, just you know, click it and they will die. I don't know. Fucking, but yeah, I did have a good time with it.
I'm sad you like Cool Runnings, Richard, because I was going to try and jam that into our next Spit Roast arc as my film. I was really hoping I would be.
You would never. I fucking adore that film.
I love Cool Runnings.
I saw it in the cinema as a kid. It's one of those movies. Whenever it
was actually a very popular film in the UK. This is the sort of film they would do. You know, when you get to watch.
I love John Candy in that movie. I think he's fucking awesome.
Me and Sam, when we used to do the fucking podcast together, we used to reference Cool Runnings all the time. We even have somewhere on my YouTube channel an animated video of the scene where they carry the bobsled over the finish line.
I love the soundtrack. I love that movie. I really like that movie.
No, that is, you know what? That is just everything that this movie, Field of Dreams, isn't. Cool Runnings is better than Field of Dreams. There you go. That's it.
Don't have to sell me. I love it. I'm just saying. I was hoping I could slide that into a future Spit Roast arc, but I guess I can't now.
Nope, not with
I
us.
mean, by the way, you could actually, for real, just do a John Candy arc. Like, he's also another one of those people think it's already committed. He's got
Planes, Trains, and
arcs to his
Automobiles
films.
is great.
Yeah, there's loads of different angles you could go with that, man.
He was definitely took too soon. Definitely. Look, I mean, obviously
Uncle Buck or whatever. That was classic.
I mean, look, we all saw it coming. We all saw it coming.
He's like a poster child for diabetes, mate. Come on.
You know, I was watching. I was watching.
Listen, John, you are funny, and his surname's Candy. For fuck's sake!
We watched
Jeez,
Spaceballs,
God was
too.
trying to give you a clue. He was giving you a hint.
I forgot he was in Home Alone until I was watching Home Alone again a couple of years ago, and he's just like has this random part at the end of Home Alone.
Okay. Yeah. Just so there you go. Maybe we'll do that for the next arc. But yeah.
Nothing like our second actor arc being John Candy. No one would see that coming.
No, I mean, listen, we pick. It's not like we're picking arcs based on what's gonna fucking bang or click or even what we like. Evidently.
Oh, by the way, I did see a comment where someone just put like, see, you honored my request. Every time we announce an arc on this show, which is when you find out we have already picked the 4 movies, you have never, I shouldn't even do this because I should let them all believe they're doing it, Richard, but you have never in any context ever influenced our decision or selected a film. I'm sorry, you are literally just like, what's it, paranoia or whatever. You're just seeing patterns that don't exist there. Yeah. I'm sorry, but that's true.
No,
we picked the movies, not you.
Yeah, that is meant.
By the way, it's not impossible in the future we might do one where maybe fans could suggest one. That could be an interesting arc, but we haven't done that ever before, I'm afraid. So when everyone goes like, "Oh, you did put that in," like I said, we never did. I'm sorry.
Like, there's one guy that said on the Conversation episode, there was one guy going, "Well, you can't do a bloody Gene Hackman arc without doing Hoosiers," right? So, right. So, guess what he's going to be saying on the Hoosiers episode when we put that out? He's going to be, "See, I knew it. Richard understands."
We try and record this show like months in advance if possible, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever.
By all means, discuss what films you want to come up. It's just that we're not unfortunately not reading it and taking notes.
By all means, like, comment, and subscribe. The entire premise of building a YouTube channel and content.
It's the way everyone who actually works in media would tell me, like, don't break the fourth wall and tell them they're not in any way engaging with the show or having their say. Like, but whatever, that's just who I am. I hate when you guys think you did something. Especially when basically you're taking an assist for something I did. And then you're like, I sort of told you that. Fuck you. I said before we even start that arc, the conversation was in there. I said that. Yeah. I was the one who picked that film. Anyway. Francis Ford Coppola made it, but I picked it.
Who did more work in the end? Who can say?
Exactly.
Who knows? Maybe we can do a movie of Duncan building a fucking director's room and Francis Ford Coppola turns up.
But my problem is, in this scenario, I have to go back in time and get Roger Ebert to come with me on a journey where we all learn about what cinema was really about. Yeah. That's what
maybe we should write a Roger Ebert biopic together.
It would end with Duncan like just fucking throttling Roger Ebert. No, you're wrong. You're getting cinema wrong.
We're doing the Quentin Tarantino-esque alternate history take of Roger Ebert's biopic.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So that's that. Field of Dreams. It's done. We all watched it. I mean, I would never have rewatched it without this arc, frankly. But I would have had a much better memory of it if that had happened. I would not recommend this film to anybody except saccharine Americans with
like me.
with daddy issues. So
I don't have daddy issues.
Yeah, well, telling on yourself, self-report, Monty. But whatever.
I enjoy it.
See, I intentionally didn't ask Monty about your actual relationship with your dad for this one. I thought we'd just leave that hanging out there.
We'll let the commenters decide what your relationship with your father's like.
All right. So that'll do it for Field of Dreams. Next week will be Rudy and then The Hustler. See you then.